Alcohol has been linked to the American lifestyle for as long as we can remember. Our culture, restaurants, gatherings, and the entirety of Las Vegas all have ties big and small to our population's appreciation for a good drink. However, there's a gap in our history that we don't often have to consider these days: the American Prohibition. For about 13 years, the consumption, sale, and ownership of alcoholic beverages was outlawed entirely. The noble experiment had the intention of lowering crime, solving social issues, and improving the overall health of all Americans. However, this was easier said than done. You could close down the factories and repossess the barrels of beer, but when humanity wants something, they find some pretty wild ways to persevere. This is the story of Moonshiners.
3-minute flicks. Entertaining, educating, and enlightening.
Moonshine existed long before Prohibition, as post-Revolutionary War families would brew their own moonshine to bring in some extra income for the American people who were still reeling in from the war. Moonshining historically has had roots as an illegal practice as well, largely due to being made by unlicensed brewers and sold under the table to avoid taxes. So when Prohibition came around and the legal American breweries and foreign imports went dry, moonshiners did what they've always been doing: illegally brewed and sold moonshine. To avoid unwanted law enforcement raining on their parade, moonshiners would often head off into the forest or into meadows to brew their illegal elixirs. However, this presented another issue, as police soon took to following the tracks of footprints right to the source of the brewery. The ingenuity of moonshiners never faltered though, and thus came the invention of cow shoes. Supposedly inspired by a Sherlock Holmes villain who used fake tracks to trick the titular protagonist, cow shoes were ordinary shoes with cow hoof-shaped wooden platforms on the bottom. Human footprints in the meadow would catch the eye of suspicious investigators, but hoofprints were everywhere in the wilderness, allowing the cow shoes to grant moonshiners anonymity amongst the other prints of the forest. It wouldn't take long for cops to catch on to this ploy after stumbling upon breweries without the use of prints, but even with the knowledge of the shoes, distinguishing them amongst the crowds of other animal tracks was significantly more difficult than the prints of a pair of sneakers. The resistance from the public and the massive loss of American jobs proved that the noble experiment was a catastrophic failure. Thus, Prohibition ended in 1933 as the government conceded to the overwhelming will of the American people. If there's one takeaway from this story, it's that moonshiners do not mess around when it comes to alcohol.
3-minute flicks. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We create new videos weekly.